Week 8 of CGL Masters Tier was the last week in the CGL regular season, so teams already locked up in playoffs took it easier than otters chilling in water, and then you had teams who were duking it out for a postseason spot. Just before we begin, thank you for all the huge support in the last video. I love you all for it. I also want to thank the Eclipsed guys who tried their hardest to help put together an episode last week when I had some personal issues. I apologize. And one last thing, the Eclipse All-Star game is back, so if you want to help your push for an All-Star case and looking for a platform, send your clips my way. They gotta be hyped though. Once again, DMs are open. Thank you, and let's get hashtag Alpine for Captain trending. To start off this week, the CGL admins decided to be fun to get a reenactment of Coughing Baby versus the Hydrogen Bomb. Let's just say the match with Cosmic versus Fireside lived up to those expectations. For map 1, Pickle decided to show how special he was on tank. Cosmic Eclipse decided to watch the new episode of JJK on point. Mega Man wanted to pull up and watch with them, but realized he wasn't caught up yet. Pickle got so angry, he decided to use his best Yuji impression and Black Flash and Mega Man off the map. And then you have the other side of the coin where he just swan dives into the well and tries to use mine's second feature as a parachute. But bro realized halfway through that it wasn't a feature. Bro must have thought this was golf the way it was a hole-in-one. For map 2, we get a look into the Cosmic Ban decision, and you would think it's a huge discussion, when in all reality, it's an Overwatch hero decider web app. Most of this map was boring until Jeff decided to aura farm this game. Jeff, from the heavens, decided to copy Widowmaker to diff for maximum aura points, but he missed and took a nice swim in the Rialto River. For map 3, Pickle wanted to fight for honor and glory, and decided to become Reinhardt himself. Had his own icon skin and everything. That is how locked in he is. Loki though, you can see how it started to affect him too, because on point 3, he solo shattered, well, the air particles. Loki said, nah, I don't need that. Bonk was also inspired by the gameplay and decided to lock Torb for a hammer kill, and that's when I knew it was over. The next game, we had actually implied big playoff indications. Dire Triggers versus Cal Poly Green. If Cal Poly Green swept or 1-3-1, they make the playoffs over Z2O, and if they do anything otherwise, they miss the playoffs entirely. And of course, me being a player for Z2O, I was watching my screen like this, helping the Dire Horse get over that finish line. And with the way Dire started that first map, I thought we were guaranteed safe, because Dire dominated the first map. Nothing to see here actually. Then map 2 came, and this is where I became unsure, because Rufo became lore accurate Ramatra and terrorized the lobby with pain and suffering. It got so bad at one point, JML just walks off the map. He doesn't want to do it anymore. This got in Nax's head so much, he locked Juno and decided to fly way too far off course and just dies. And that even made the situation worse, because he dropped a ray because of the fly, a mosquito, maybe Casper. And now it's turning into the Nax trouble show, because on the last point of the map, Nax just stares at a Reaper TP and does nothing to stop his impending doom, and Dire explode. Cal Poly has to win here, and in order to keep their playoff hopes alive, and well, Dire take this to Havana. We already know the history of this map and what it does to players, and we have no shortage of misplays here, as we had a Nano Jax to start off this map. It's beautiful. We also have multiple big Sigma plays like Myraj getting rocked out of his flux. It's great to see. And then Rufo just outright whiffing his flux. Nax and JML just sidestepped that thing. But there is something to talk about here, and that's the Nax wave usage here. Bro thinks the wave can travel over the fabric of the air, but that's not how it works. Now, if you think I just hate Nax about how much I'm talking about him, I was just watching his POV, so I noticed a lot, including how nasty he was with those orbs. I haven't seen water bending like this since the Greek gods were doing it eons ago. But the Cal Poly Green offense ends, and just before third point, just to spare you the time, Dire made their offense look painless, and we finished the map with a Genji 4K. For map 4, Dire starts off with a scary defensive Coliseo, and I thought they were about to get shit on, especially with B Tricky taking heads, but I was proven wrong rather swiftly when Dire full capped Coliseo, and we move on to the next day competition. To start off our adventures, we venture into the minds of Starburst and EMP, and boy was this match a great ordeal of peak. To start off this match, we gotta peep that Lux is on what role? But the real story is that EMP flex support couldn't make it, so Lux had to play the flex support, and we can tell it's a DPS player on Kiri because of these overzealous ass Suzus. And another point to touch on was Stale Bell. The ball, which gave us shades of Prime Shazam. You get the boops, you get the gun kills, you get the zoomies. Truly just a full ball experience. But to start off this map, we have EMP Gaming on first point, and taking it pretty convincingly. But point 2 is where the struggle began for EMP. Stell started to come alive on that ball, and Tiny was, well, shiny on the venture. Good coverage. Whatever. But this was a different Starburst than last week, where this happened to them.
House here. Can we kill House? I'm not. Tiny, you're supposed to.
This Starburst team is moving different, and we finished the round with a beautiful boop to deny touch. Then the third point rolls around, and we can see that EMP and Starburst are having a very heated game of tug of war, where EMP is playing very standard strategic Overwatch, but Stell is doing their best Chica impression by jumpscaring the entire lobby, but it was not enough, and EMP took the first map. On map 2, it started off with domination from the side of EMP, especially with Scorpio doing his thing on Reaper. The guy was John Reaper for a minute there. But then EMP lost a few fights, and after the first 2 points, we get a little tilted, and Starburst take advantage. Of course, Stell was doing great things as usual, but something needs to be studied here. Lux decided it would be best to play Juno, and you would think Starburst would target the Juno high in the air, but no. Lux actually signed a deal with a very shady man in a dark alley where he would be invisible until Starburst killed 3 or more of his team. But Stell had enough of this dark magic and decided to fight back and use his mind control to make Lux TP into a mine. Lux didn't like that and reversed the mind control onto Tiny and walks a little too far back and falls out the map. But this mage battle couldn't save EMP, and they lose the map in a reverse sweep. And this series just got a little more interesting. But what wasn't that very interesting was the third map. The ball was banned here and the Starburst lost too much meterage before they could fight back. Even with Vaiku trying their hardest on Freya to turn this back, it wasn't enough. Even with Stell using dark magic to make Scorpio stand in bomb vicinity, it wasn't enough. Even with Lux suing the heavens, it just wasn't enough for Starburst to win. To start off map 4, Starburst get held a little bit in first point until Tiny popped ult on point to force kill 2 and C9 EMP while they were focused on the wrong threat. I haven't even brought up how impactful Shiny has been the entire series because they have been popping off for a while now. But a little bit into second point Rialto, we see a first-hand case of gambler's disease in game. Stell sees Fulcrum glowing and shiny and mistakes him for a slot machine, so they venture on over and then Fulcrum slams Stell back into crumbling debt. But a person who did not falter under this pressure was Vaiku, who had the lowest cortisol 3k of all time and decided to keep the vibes going by going underneath everyone's noses and try and flank under here. It's low-key smart, but EMP just read the play. Starburst finished halfway into second and EMP started their attack off very hot. I thought this would be it for Starburst, but no. It turns out they mad as hell, and Stell, Vaiku, and Tiny gave them a piece of their mind and ran EMP's pockets. First, they coerced the entirety of EMP to walk up the staircase, and soon EMP find out it was a very bad idea, as the walls started to move and collapse on them as Starburst came crashing in. Next, Lux wanted to walk the point. Stell notices they look a little hot and decides to throw them in the water. Clearly, Lux didn't learn their lesson, because they did it again, and the exact same thing happened. And now we move to map 5, where nothing truly happened and EMP take the win. Our next game of the day is Aura Fury vs Excel, and by what I was told, the series was just draw normal Overwatch and there wasn't anything really worth talking about. The game after this was Blackout vs Deagles, and this is my first time casting an Overwatch game. To start off the series, Blackout domination. They brought up the first submap to 99%, but that's when Diamond Eagles locked in. They just won more fights in general. It was beautiful to see. The reverse is point, and we get a glimpse into the brilliance of Balin, who some said might be better than Ufer. To start off the second round, Diamond Eagles are not letting their foot off the gas and open the round with close to 50% in point percentage. But Blackout woke up from this coma and decided to lock back in, even with getting first picked every fight and Cupid having a rather quiet game. Blackout take the second submap, and the third submap, Diamond Eagles opt for Queen to help with speed and try and run down Blackout, and boy does it work. Balin would find an early pick, and that was the bat signal to speed everything down for Diamond Eagles. And with Diamond Eagles taking so many damn fights, they win this third submap and win map 1 in general. And we might have a great game on our hands, folks. For map 2, Diamond Eagles keep that momentum going with taking the first sub point and this deeply disturbed Blackout. So they decided to wake up Cupid finally, and he took over the lobby. It didn't matter. Overclock or not, he was still going to find a way to pack up anyone in his way. Diamond Eagles start to fall apart like wet bread despite Balin and Whole Ohio's efforts to keep the team alive. Map 3 was complete Blackout domination with Cupid on the soldier. So I'll skip right to map 4, where we had a few things to highlight. To start off things, we see Roadhog style come into play the Junkrat, and he actually took over on this character. This guy made Junkrat look OP, and Diamond Eagles were afraid to be in the vicinity of any building because they knew the Junk Demon would be there to toss them like a salad. Another point we should talk about is that Pika Shatter. This guy shattered more ghosts, and I guess it must be an organization thing because a Blackout tank and a Cosmic tank both shattered ghost. But I knew Diamond Eagles' demise was near when they C9'd the point. Me and Vert went speechless on the mic for a second after it. Diamond Eagles fall 3-1. There are truly only 2 more games to talk about this week, so I'll start off with Fallen versus Shoes. And with the way Theory and Coach 2 were talking, I thought it would be closer. For the first game, we see Coach 2 gaming on ball, and it was creative to say the least. But Shoes started off with this map with a dominant first point where their backline did not die once. But this gets spoiled rather quickly in the next round as Bowsy just falls off the map in the next sub point. That's what he gets for Ajaxing me earlier that day in quick play. But Shoes once again carries that momentum from the first round and gets the point to 99%. Fallen almost make a big comeback to secure a lead, but lose it rather late and could not recover after this, and they lose map 1. For map 2, there's only one major highlight, and that was Theory using the most selfish Tranquil to get out of the fight. He is soon punished for his sins as the entire team dies in a small room that Tranquil would have been a perfect tool to use to fight this. Another point to talk about is the Widow 1v1 the following round. Let's just say Husky had Nyan Kip scared to peek much, as Husky just punished Nyan every single time. With Shoes up 2-0, Fallen takes us to Midtown where Shoes decides to try a new flavor of comp, but we just made some bullshit. But Shoes decides to push past this point and take some space, but Fallen are holding this line with their lives, even with Mudkip accidentally taking himself out with the override protocol. To signal the end of Shoes' attack, we have Head Rammer on Rhine, and that was a full hold from Fallen. To combat this, and hopefully get a draw, Danik decides to lock Junk, and for a minute there, it was working. Especially considering that Fallen ran into his Saw-themed evil lair and died a tragic death. To make the experience faster, and to get back to Danik's evil lair even faster, Geo locks Sim and they TP to the evil lair and die again. But after they go back to the firehouse once again, they win the fight and are now fighting for the point to get and getting trades. Now it's just Headrammer, Danik, and Mudkip decides to pop protocol to finish the job off, but Headrammer says hell no, and Mother Bird's a very low Danik with his cage. But Fallen come back and Danik is in the firehouse waiting to get touched. When he pops out, he flies a little too high and can't touch point. Map 4 was most of the Shoe show, but Fallen almost made a comeback, especially with Hammer also infected with the gambling disease and flying straight at the flying and glowing Emre and gets DMAC for it. He uses Bomb to remake and finds 2 somehow, but Fallen almost make a comeback in OT, with needing to win one more team fight, but Hammer bombs on point and Fury dies to it, and no one could touch in time. The last game I will cover is Asura vs Nature's Bloom. I can't lie, these first 2 sub-maps were kind of a snoozer, but this third one makes up for it all. Asura might have had some banana peels around the point, because tell me why 4 of the 5 on People's and Nature's Bloom fell off the map! Yeah, you could technically make a case for that Adamant didn't fall off the map, they got booped, but you can't make that excuse for the other 3. Rhapsody, Basil, and Withard might have had a competition together, decided to see who can die the silliest, and personally, it has to be Rhapsody, because they low-key just walked off the map. No pressure from everyone, just decided enough was enough. The other 2 were still really silly though. For map 2, we had the Rialto, and I think Asura is still haunted by the ghost of Rialto, because as soon as Koso touched the high ground, she just died to Basil and Adamant. Asura might not touch that high ground in playoffs just to be safe. Just a few fights later, Basil committed one of the 7 deadly sins, greed. Homie got his 3, even soloed to Costa with the blade, but they wanted more. Came after MSR, and MSR said, "Not today, not in this house." Outside of the first round, everything was normal until MSR and Dong really didn't like this Ana. They set up behind her spawn and waited like some thugs in the back alley. Even after he got caught out and he still killed that Ana, MSR hit again. MSR had a heat-seeking missile going Withard's way, because even with people peeling, MSR still killed them. I counted MSR was in their backline for at least a minute and a half and still lived. With that 3-0 sweep for Asura, while everyone was celebrating while sitting down, MSR was still on his feet because this guy stands and plays on this setup. What is with tank players and they whack-ass setups? The other games this week was UIE versus DePaul, but that was a forfeit. The strike game wasn't really that interesting, and the 2 bye games were the closest 3-0s I have ever seen, but those replays need to be kept secret because they are too valuable for the world to see. Once again, my name is Alpine, and let's get hashtag Alpine for Captain trending in Masters chat. Thank you to Mist for helping me make 2 scripts for games this week, and yes, I will be covering playoffs. But that is all for the regular season. I will see you in playoffs.